And Talk Station 99.3, Nigeria Info, Lagos, Nigeria. Good morning to you. Thank you for staying tuned. We started this show around 5 a.m. And we did say that we'll be speaking with the governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, on the show this morning. And I'm happy and glad to inform you that the Governor, His Excellency Babajide Sanwo-Olu, joins us right now. You can watch on Facebook and on YouTube. Facebook is Nigeria Info 99.3 and YouTube is Nigeria Info 99.3 as well, so you can watch live. His Excellency Babajide Sanwo-Olu comes on air now. Mr. Governor, good morning to you and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Sheriff. Good morning. It's nice to have you.
It's good to have you here, sir. I understand that we're supposed to have had this conversation on Monday, but I was told that you paused your campaign following the tragic train accident involving a public bus last Thursday. I'd like to express my personal condolences and the condolence of the group to the state governor, yourself, and the entire state as well. I'm also aware that you initiated a call for blood donations to assist the injured. We, again, as a group here, would like to extend our heartfelt condolences to those affected by this incident. Moving forward now, what measures can be implemented to prevent such occurrence? Because a lot of people have said so many things concerning what happened.
Well, okay. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Lagosians. So Sheriff, thank you very much for having me. So moving forward, first is to correct that it wasn't a public bus. It was actually a staff bus. It was a Lagos State public service staff bus that was moving from people from Isolo area, and they were taking them to Alausa. So largely, apart from their few, 2-3 dependents, they are all public servants, in different agencies, ministries, so including the driver, right? They are public officers. And it's a route that they've been passing virtually every time. As into the reasons that led to it, we could say it was purely a human error. It was a misjudgment of the driver who did not listen or err on the side of caution when signaling the physical signalization guys were on ground and have advised, vehicles to stop. I was told that he actually swerved out of line and he felt he could beat the oncoming train. So it was a completely wrong human judgment error, and these kind of things that you don't even pray to happen when you're in an aircraft, very unfortunate. And I dare say that the driver, he's also, I think he's in hospital now. Initially, he didn't feel anything, but he's also in hospital. But so how do we prevent and guard, against such things? From the experts, what they've said is there are about 3 levels, at ensuring grid level crossing. How real infrastructure are built in the world all over, about 3 levels of control. One is the physical barrier. When I mean physical barrier is maybe you have an overpass, so you have an infrastructure barrier where you have a bridge and there'll be train, moving under. That's the most desired. That's a physical barrier. Then you have other ones which will have like a gate, a gated barrier where when a train is coming, you actually gate the thing. Then the third one, you have signalization, which could be traffic light, traffic signal, which will show a stop, And I think there is an hybrid, which is where you have a physical person, a human being who flags down with flags and all of that, right? And they will be able to control vehicular movement. I think is the last one that we'll have at that station. And NRC, which is Nigerian Railway Corporation, are the owners of the rail, and they are the owners of so they are the ones that are running the place right now. Interestingly, that is the corridor for our own future red line as well. So we do not want to abstain ourselves from the future usage of that rail track. We're working on the red line, and the red line is from Ibutemeta all the way to Agbado. So it will fly on that rail corridor as well. And that will have a quicker headroom. So one of the lessons that we've taken away is that we will need to wrap up our infrastructure, as in the real physical infrastructure, to avoid any vehicular or human contact with rail. And Sheriff, that's why a lot of people don't know we're building concurrently 5 overhead bridges that our rail infrastructure will pass. And I'll quickly go over them. Yeah. There's one we have at Ibutemeta. We're building a bridge, a full vehicular bridge at Ibutemeta. It's about 80%, 85% completed. We're building one at Yaba. Yaba is about 95% completed, bridge, vehicular bridge, so that there is no contact at all. Number three, we're building one at Mushin, Mushin to Unipan. We're building one. That's the third one. We're building one at Ikeja along, which is a massive, big, bridge infrastructure that you see by Ikeja local government. That's what we call Ikeja along. And the last one we're building at Ayola Koka, which is at Iju. Federal government is meant to build one for us, around there. And I think there's one that has already passed Penn Cinema, which we've already built already. So these infrastructure are part of the things that are meant to help the rail movement. When the trains are moving, there is no interface at all because vehicles are on overpasses and the rails are there. So that's a long-term solution, which will. But before that is to ensure that we could either have signalization, which will be traffic signalization, or ensure that we have gate signalizations, which will be to have physical barrier. And so we're working with the NRC, to see how we wrap up that. And we're meant to also wall off that entire corridor at some point when the infrastructure and the rail movement starts, because ours will have a quicker headroom. We're meant to be seeing a train every 10 or 15 minutes, and that's the plan for our urban mass transportation system that we promise Lagosians.
Again, our hearts go out to all of those who lost loved ones and those that are in recovery. We wish you very, very quick recovery, and well done to the Commissioner, for Health, for what he did and his team as well, and being under the leadership of the governor himself. Great job, guys. Mr. Governor, let's hit the ground running now. Let's talk elections. 2 weeks ago, everybody expected your party, in fact, your principal, to win, if not anywhere in Nigeria, to win in Lagos by a wide margin, by landslide. But that didn't happen. But what do you suppose happened?
Nothing happened. That's the beauty of democracy. Right, that's the power the citizens have. That's the beauty of democracy. That's the beauty of what we're talking about, right? And we need to get out of this lockdown, right? If indeed we want to have reflective of what the people, at every election requires, we need to learn and understand how it works, right? It wasn't only my principal that lost his own state. Mr. President also did not win his own state. You'll have expected that there's no president that wins without winning the KKK state. Kaduna, Katsina, Kano. Guess what? He didn't win any of those three states, but he still won the election. So students of politics and history need to go back and rethink, and understand that the power that we're talking about, right, is the legitimacy that a democratic process will give you. And this is a clear current call that for all of us to see, right? We can begin to talk about the other softer issues, around, religion, ethnicity. I don't go from that school of thought. I just want to believe, that people indeed have their choices, because if you say Katsina, for example, right, if it's a Muslim, he was meant to be, but it didn't happen. So that's what the people want. And that's why we need to very quickly be able to put the previous election behind us and learn. And let's talk about individuals. What are the things they want to bring to the table? What are the issues? What are the competence, the capacity that they have? And learn from it. So, so gone are those days when we can sit back and expect that, because this is how we've been doing it. So that's the lesson and the learning, Sheriff. And you can see there's been a lot of disruptions, from people that believe they have stronghold. A governor have lost, a senatorial election. A sitting governor have lost, even his ward and local government, a sitting governor, right? So it's the beauty of what democracy can throw up. Right, is the beauty of what we need to ensure that we begin to ensure people participate, and they participate without emotion. Talking about real issues, talking about what are the things people want to hear, see, and feel. Right, and that for me is what's on the table, and that for me is what we're dealing with.
No, talking about what we're dealing with, and this Saturday's election, what would you then? How would you see your chances looking at the people that are running alongside you, the PDP, the LP, the ADC? And I understand that some of the party members, big party members, have moved to the APC, placed their allegiance to your campaign. But then your chances on Saturday, going by what happened we can't divorce what happened 2 weeks ago from what will possibly happen. What probably happened the Saturday? How would you fancy your chances?
Thank you very much, Sheriff, again. So first is to thank all of the candidates that on their own free will, I hear about 9 or 10 of them, decided to step down for my candidacy and have indicated their willingness to support our campaign. I think about 10 different political parties, 10 different governorship candidates, were indeed very humbled with that. I guess it's driven by them also having review who has the capacity, who has the competence, who has the competitive edge, who has the character, to be able to continue to lead Lagos at this important time. And in short, people can also ask them, what led to those conclusions for them. But for me, like you also have analyzed, what on the table it's about, capacity, competence, and character. What are those things? What have you done in your own life? What are the pedigree? What are the experience you're bringing to the table? What level of knowledge do you have that this job entails? What are your previous roles? What is your educational background, your experience, on the job? A governor of the 6th largest economy in Africa can certainly not be a test run, activity. We are driving the largest black city in the world. It cannot be a test run. It's not driven by emotion. It certainly cannot. It's going to be driven by people who people can't see have the track record and the capacity to do it. And I did mention something yesterday, right? So that we're comparing apple with apple. The youngest candidate, that it's also, competing, in this race is a 40-year-old Lagosian Nigerian. And I said, let's discount our age to age 40. Okay. And let's ask, what have everybody done at age 40? I'm 57, so I'm going to tell you what I've done at age 40. At age 40, right, I had left the banking industry as a general manager heading investment banking. I'd been in that sector 15 years prior to then, and I've had to develop competence and experience in very strong, structured, investment banking. I've been treasurers in 3 banks before then, in foreign currency market and local currency market. We developed, the very competent, money market instrument that are being used today in derivatives, in futures, and every of the markets that are being driven in the financial industry today. I was one of the people that developed it. Very quickly, I moved into public sector, and by 40, I had done about 4 years or thereabout in the public sector. I had become a commissioner, of economic planning. I've been advisor to a sitting governor at that time, right? I have had the opportunity to present a budget, a full year budget with the House of Assembly. I've defended, budgetary provision. I've had to oversee and manage, a lot of government agencies and government parastatals at that time. Board of Internal Revenue at some point reported to me. LOMA at some point reported to me. Transportation agencies reported to me at some point, at age 40. At age 40, I've had the opportunity to also sit at the Lagos State Consultancy Board, Lagos State, Tenders Board. And so these are experiences that you cannot take away, both in the public and the private sector, right? And that for me is what is on the tape. By the time you add my additional 17 years, to what I was when I was 40, which are taking me both to the private sector and back to the public sector, right? Then you can see that we're not just here to give promises that we don't know how to deliver on those promises, or to give political talk without having the right experience to be able to lean on those experiences. And my 4-year track record here as governor, almost 4 years, I've indeed shown that even with very difficult, pandemic that the entire world, needed to grapple with, we came out of it stronger, better. We were able to rescue this country because half of all of the incidents happened in Lagos. But we rescued this country. We had frontline experiences that we were able to do to rescue this country, right? And in terms of performance, right, on the budgetary scale, I was telling some people yesterday, in 4 years, we have doubled the budgetary, provision of Lagos State from about 800 billion in 2019 to 1.7 trillion, right? You can't achieve those feats by just mere sentiments or talk. These are real infrastructural development that has happened in the state within a space of under 4 years. When you double your budget and you are doing 85% budgetary performance, and you're doing a 60-40 capital expenditure to recurrent, no state, not even at the federal level, has achieved those feats. And with all sense of humility, I want to thank Lagosians, for supporting us to be able to have these audacious, numbers to present to them, and we can begin to see it and feel it in all of the pillars of engagement that we've had.
Mr. Governor, let's talk about a few other things. I'm glad you mentioned COVID. One of the things that also some people would say affected your administration in the last 4 years or so was the issue of NSAS and what happened at the toll gate and all of that. A lot of the young people listening to this program right now and a lot of the new voters in Lagos will still agree that they bear that grudge against your administration. If you have to convince them, if you have to say anything to them, what would that be in order to get their vote on Saturday?
Well, thank you, Sheriff. So this was an incident that's almost 3 years old now. This was an incident that was very unfortunate in the history of our country. This was an incident that happened, did not start in Lagos. This was an incident that Lagos became a collateral damage because it was not an incident that was meant for Lagos. This was an incident that I led from the front. In all of the 3 weeks while that incident was going on, I led everything from the front. I did the very first in terms of leadership and administration to bring about a peaceful, end of that unfortunate incident. I identified with all of them. I led to understand and to appreciate what their yearnings, what their requests were. And at the end of the day, what happened in October 20th happened, right? I did not create, the events or the military engagement there. For people that understand and know what the constitutional rules are, it was not in the remit in any form of a sitting. There have been several, speeches. There have been several events that have pointed to the fact that a governor do not even have such powers or such remit at all. Sheriff, you can remember that even, a chief superintendent of police did not even listen to my own little instruction when I went to Magodo, the other day, not to now talk of, a full military detachment, on this. And so the question around, which I find it very strange when people that are meant to be coming to, become governor of Lagos State are using words that are dividing us against, things that should be, uniting us, and when you say who gave the shooting and all of that, and unfortunately, we need to do a role play. A lot of my youth, kids, children, my brothers and sisters of that age, we need to be able to snap out of it and let's, build back better and understand that the lessons and the learning of that incident has made us a better, more resilient citizens, right? And I mentioned too that everybody that has come out, in any form to say that, there has been injured or injury, right? I have paid them, there've been compensation that have been given to all of the injured people that have come up. Not one person, Sheriff, have you seen on the street carrying a placard to say that they have not been compensated, they have not been paid. And we've done all of that, right? And the lessons and the learning is not lost on us, but to begin to use things that divide us as a political, agenda means that we want to be retrogressive. We want to be progressive and move on and understand and appreciate that we should not let events like that determine who we are and what we stand for. We're building the city back, we're learning and we're responding, to a lot of the yearnings and the agitations, that might, come from our young people. So I want to, reassure them that I'm a governor for them. I'm being their friend and their brother. I've been the one that has listened to them the most. I've been the one that has carried them along the most. I've been the one that has given them an opportunity in tech business, giving them opportunity in the creative industry, in the music industry, in the sport industry. And that is what we're talking about. That is the competitiveness, the comparative edge, that we're talking about, that one has been able to create. All of the jobs were created on infrastructure, right? It's all about that. It's all about the youth. It's all about giving them the opportunity. There's several of my young people that are working, living in Lagos, but their principal, their offices are in Canada and US. And it's based on the level of infrastructure, technological infrastructure that will be developed in Lagos. We've given the backbone for tech startups to come to Lagos, for hyperscale, data center to be set up in Lagos. It's all because of the environment which they found themselves. That's why you and I can sit in our various offices and have this conversation now, Sherry. And that's the kind of power that we've developed in this system. So it's not about what has divided us. It's not about what has happened 3 years ago. It's about what are the opportunities that we've created for ourselves going forward. It's about showing empathy, showing compassion, giving opportunity to the citizen, ensuring that we can build this economy bigger, better, and quicker. And that's what, I believe that we should be, advancing, going forward. As in, that incident, the jury is out. I don't want to begin to, dwell, too much as into those incidents, but around understanding what has happened, we've taken it up and we're doing everything that the government can do, everything within my powers, we're done, right? Rightfully so, and I'm happy. I'm happy because, we do not have what they wanted. What people want is that they want somebody that will come and show, a broken leg or a broken. There's none, right? And we're indeed grateful to understand that we'll continue to do our very best, at ensuring that even incidents like this do not even happen around our system again.
What we're going to do, Mr. Governor, is we're going to take just a call because we understand that we have a very limited time with you this morning. So we'll take just one call to get one question in, and then we call it a morning. Let's see who we've got here. Good morning to you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, please turn off your radio quickly.
Yeah, my name is Peter.
Welcome, Peter. Go ahead.
Yes, I want to commend the state governor that is talking right now, but there are certain things I notice in Lagos State that are to be put in proper order. When you talk about things that are happening in Lagos and it's like there is no government in the land, then it makes a lot of people to feel disturbed. You understand? Now we're talking about lives that were lost and we're talking about compensation. Before that compensation, couldn't we have done something to prevent the loss of those lives? Now, something else happened in Lagos State. A lot of people have been complaining. I personally have been victim of house demolition. You build your house, a day a bulldozer will just come, pull down your house without information. Now you go to court. People will be telling you can't win government, you can't win government. By the grace of God, the one that affected us in Mowo Phase 2 at Iporome, we won that case since 2019. The court ordered Lagos State government and Nigerian police to compensate all of us. Till tomorrow, we've not seen 10 naira. They said they want to appeal the case. Okay, go to appeal court. We are waiting for you. Up to tomorrow, we didn't hear anything about that.
All right.
So, how do you treat the people that you are governing in that way?
All right.
And you still expect them to put you back to power?
All right. Thank you. Thank you for the question, Mr. Governor. Did you get that?
Well, thank you, Patrick. Thank you for the commendation first. So this is what has happened to you. 2019, I probably was not even in government then. So I might not be able to speak specifically to what issues he is addressing at Mowo. I think it's not Mowe because Mowe is in Ogun State.
That's right.
Right, but there'll probably be a Mowo towards Badagry. What typically, has happened is that people also do not do what I call due diligence when they're getting into land transaction.
Okay.
You need to be able to do your independent due diligence and ascertain who exactly owns the land that you want to get, into the transaction. One of the smallest things, one of the major problems that we have in Lagos is also because of the size of the land that Lagos, in terms of space of Lagos, to put it in context, we're less than 0.23% of the size of this country. Sheriff, we're less than 0.4. That's how tiny Lagos is compared to the size of the country. So you're not talking to a state that is even 1% or 2% or 3% of the size of the country. So it's in a tiny dot that all of us have over 10%, almost 13% of the population squeezing in. So it's really so tight up for all of us to stay within this small space. And because of that demography and that congestion that we have, even in land space, I expect and I want to plead again, that people should do proper due diligence as into who also owns what. That's number one. Number two is also to now go ahead and find out what is the fiscal planning arrangement in that neighborhood. Is there a plan for an industrial estate? Is there a plan for a school? Is there a plan for a residential estate? So if we say that we're living in a mega city, there are rules in which we must learn to govern. You cannot just come if there are no proper plan or layout, right, in which roads and all of the things will be properly planned, and just buy land from anybody, right? And anybody gives you a receipt and you just want to build the following day. Unfortunately, as is done everywhere in the world, even with Abuja being a new mega city, demolition will occur. It bleeds my heart. Nobody wants to destroy or demolish anybody's, property. But, we cannot also sit back and turn the whole city, into a jungle. So there has to be rules in which we must be able to follow, right? And the court process too, it's also for everybody to be able to express fully, whatever misgivings they have. The citizens have the right to court, and government also have the right to court. So that, in a democracy, judiciary must also be allowed to play their role, right? You cannot say that government has gone to court, then that means government is at fault, right? And you also, as citizens, you also must be respected. As into being given, being awarded compensation.
Right.
If he can reach out to my office, I can review it. But in 2019, I can assure you that maybe I was not even in there, right? But I know that we take over both assets and liabilities. So we're culpable in a way and manner to be able to assist our citizens when all of these things, do occur. So Victor, don't give up. It's really, we're just building a better society for ourselves. Thank you very much.
Mr. Governor, we'll have to leave you here this morning. Thank you for being a part of the show. Thank you for giving us your time, and wish you best of luck on Saturday. Bye-bye now. Lagos, that's what we've got for you. Right now, we'll be speaking to Achike Chude, and we'll get his response to everything the governor said on the show this morning. So, Lagos, stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
Talk station of Lagos is closer to you than ever.
Join the conversation online or on the go.
Be part of the Info family on our user-friendly mobile app and website for a better and improved listening experience.
Download the app from Google Play Store and App Store.
With super efficient and clean audio quality.
Log on to nigeriainfo.fm.
Watch us live on YouTube and Facebook.
Follow us on Twitter at NigeriaInfoFM.
And Instagram at NigeriaInfoFM Lagos.
99.3 Nigeria Info.
Let's talk. Is Morning Crossfire on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
The nation's number one talk station, 99.3 Nigeria Info. Achike Chude joins me right now. Achike, good morning to you. Thank you.
Good morning.
Let's begin by, of course, getting your thoughts on what the governor said. I'm sure you listened to that interaction with the governor of the state. I'm going to start with what's your response to the issue of APC losing the state last 2 weeks. He said that it shows there are new thinking people, new things now matter to people, not pedigree or anything. People have different things that they look out for in their candidate, and it's normal for these things to happen in a democracy.
Yeah. I didn't get the crux of the question itself, just the tail end of it.
Yeah, I was asking what's your response would be to what the governor said as regards last 2 weeks presidential election. Did you get that when he responded to that?
Yeah, well, they obviously this is an expression of democracy. That is what democracy is all about. It's about choice. It's about people's views. It's about scorecards being presented to the people, and it's about the people making up their choice, being free, exercising their fundamental human right to decide who should govern them and to decide who should not govern them, because ultimately it's about the lives of the people. And so we have seen all manners of activities sequel to this last election. Some of them good, some of them very unpleasant and unpalatable and unwholesome. So I think that with the renewed energy and vigor with which the governor is pursuing his political ambition, it is something that is good and positive. Because in a way, perhaps more than at any other time in the history of, the political history of this country from 1999 to date, there has been a lot of earthquaking situations, and where the politicians now realize the primacy of the people in deciding their political future. And we must give it to all those Nigerians who have participated in this process in upturning old institutions and the traditions of power, across the country. Because the people are much more. Yes, if you look at the dynamics of the election and the fact that we say that 27 million people turned out, and this seems to be the lowest from 1999 to date. But you also have to look at other reasons why the population was not as it should have been. The number of people that were turned back as a result of INEC's inefficiency, the INEC officials that came in around 3-4 p.m., the day of election. So all of these things also contributed. But beyond that, is the fact that there is a new awakening, a new realization by politicians that it appears the citizens have woken up and that the citizens might no longer vote along the traditional, lines. And so that has given them a new impetus, a sense of urgency to work harder than before to merit and to earn the vote of the Nigerian people. So from that perspective, it is good. Though there is the downside of it, and that is the fact that also the politicians are using the old methods also of intimidation and threats against the people, which is incompatible with what the politicians are trying to do, to take over, legitimate control, legitimate control of the democratic institutions in the country for the purpose of delivering on good governance. So all of these activities of violence and the rest are incompatible with these democratic ideas and ethos.
Achike, let's quickly fast forward because of time to the last part of that engagement where we spoke about the NSAS movement and what happened. The governor seemed to be with the idea of, it's time to heal and move on and build back up and better.
Yes, I would agree with the governor when he says it's time to heal, because we cannot continue to dwell, on the past. But we must also understand the importance or the necessity of using the past as a basis for determining the present and the future. So if the past, like somebody says that unless a matter is handled right, it can never turn out right. So in the search for, a new present and a new future, we must also ensure that the injustices of the past are addressed in the present in order to move forward. And I'm not exactly sure that has been adequately addressed. The NSAS thing is something that I know a lot about, at least in terms of on the basis of the fact that I'm also a human, rights person. And so I know that there are so many other people. There was this issue of denial by the government, and it's not just the Lagos State government, but all over the country. There was this denial of what happened and how to truly compensate the people. There are those who have not been compensated. They are there and there is abundant evidence that they were involved in what happened. The fact that there are people that were shot, the fact that the panel set up by the state government had also indicated that some people were killed, and the government came out against the same panel that they set up. So there are some discrepancies, and I think that if we need to move forward, which I agree with the governor that we need to do, we cannot do that if there is still this feeling of injustice as a result of what happened, in the state. During the hashtag #EndSARS. So I'm not sure that the governor addressed these issues adequately. But we understand that he's in a difficult situation, but it was not well addressed, by him.
How would you assess, though, the brand of politics that you've noticed in Lagos here, where people now flash tribal cards at fault lines to canvass for votes?
Yeah, let me just say this, that this is a shameful thing in the 21st century. Having seen what happened in Rwanda and in other parts of the world, where parochial sentiments become the basis for determining who gets to power. In the first place, the beneficiaries, of injustice, the beneficiaries or the beneficiaries of an unjust act, the beneficiaries of a pernicious and insidious act cannot dispense justice, because from day one, they have shown their disdain and their contempt, for doing the right thing. So turning the people against one another, I think, is a very heinous thing to do. And what it means is that by the time people resort to primitive ethnic profiling and resort to primitive behavior like this, what it simply tells you is that they lack ideas and they do not have, the right kind of arguments, persuasive arguments to be able to sway people. And so in order to have their way, they resort to things that are in absolute violation of the law and of the constitution of the country, which states that everybody has a fundamental right to self-expression, fundamental right to decide, their political leaders. There can be no reason under the sun for people to use, ethnic or religious clickbaiting to turn people against themselves. And I have always made the argument that Nigerians on their own know how to relate with one another. Nigerians are not patently unjust people. Nigerians have a fair sense of justice, regardless of the socioeconomic conditions that we find ourselves in. Let the politicians leave them alone. Let the elites leave them alone. They will be able to interact in a judicious manner with one another and look after one another, regardless of ethnic proclivities or religious tendencies or geopolitical considerations. And so anytime you have this breakdown, this crisis of identity politics, assailing our politics, it simply tells you that some people are beating the drum. And this is what we see on a perennial, every 4 years. So that tells you that these things are used only for the basis of politics. And I think that, and I'm beginning to see something different this time around. Yes, there are some people that are doing it. Count the number of people, on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, that are pushing this insidious and pernicious agenda. And then count the number of people, the population of Lagos State. And you realize that you might not have up to about 200, 300, 400 people that are engaging in this, ethnic baiting. While the rest of the people in their millions are just going about their duties. But the danger about allowing it is that if you look at what happened in Rwanda, you ask yourself, how many people started it? It's always the minority. And the time the majority keeps quiet, when there is a clear and present danger, to themselves, then you realize that sooner or later the minority will begin to have their way and gain ascendancy, of the process until it devolves into, all manners of violence. So we must keep on talking to our people that what is of utmost importance to every single one of us is good governance. There are so many Nigerians, so many of our people, left, right, and center. Look at Kemi Badendok. Kemi Badendok is somebody from the southwest of this country. Her heritage is Yoruba,
That's right.
but she is doing so well in the United Kingdom and was in the process of becoming Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Nobody said, look, you could go back to where you're coming from. You understand? And other parts of the world, Nigerians are doing exceptionally well as immigrants in those other places. You can imagine a situation where people begin to say, no, you people, we don't want you people anymore. But what are they doing? They are progressing and developing those nations where they are. And so if you talk about the strength of Europe and America and all that, you must also look at the ability, what the immigrants, especially Nigerians, have been able to do in those places. These Nigerians are praying and hoping that one day our country will begin to work once we have sorted out the problem of political, selection, of leaders, so that one day they will be able to come back to Nigeria and give to the country what they have been giving to other foreign countries.
Indeed. Now, two things people are talking about, Chike, and we've just spoken about the first one, which is the brand of politics, tribal politics. The other part is the promise and seeming failure on the part of the election umpire, INEC. INEC promised everything through the beavers before the elections. We all saw how the elections of last 2 weeks played out, where results were not uploaded right on time as promised by INEC, and this discouraged a lot of people leading up to this Saturday's election, and quite a number of people have said they wouldn't even bother to go waste their time at the polling booth. I wanted to speak to that's because it's one thing for people to brand tribe to secure vote. It's another thing for another set of people to feel disenfranchised deliberately by the system. And these two things can actually lead to what you mentioned earlier, all-out chaos. What should be done this time in order for us to get it right?
Yeah. Let me start with the last observation you made about the new resolve of those people who have participated in the process, who are disappointed and that decided they will no longer be part of that process. They lack understanding, most unfortunately. They are not aware that in a system that is essentially unjust, in a system that is fundamentally dysfunctional, that it is going to take a struggle for you to be able to make changes within that system. And so they do not understand. So they need to be made politically aware and conscious of their duties as citizens. They cannot fold their arms if they want change. This change must come. Sometimes in many parts of the world, it has come through sweat and blood.
You fight for it.
In South Africa, it was about blood, violence under the apartheid system. But we have been lucky that we didn't exactly go through all of those processes. Perhaps that's why they watch more, their democracy. And so Nigerians should know that, yes, there were disappointments, but that the enemies of the country are bound everywhere. The people that are, creating crisis in the country are everywhere. And somebody described it as organized chaos, that in order for them to have their way, then they must ensure that there is chaos that is controlled in a particular manner so that they can continue to exploit the system. So our own is to say no. Our own is to be resilient. Then so they cannot give up. Then with regards to INEC, let me just tell you that I'm personally ashamed and embarrassed, about what has happened. As a civil society, activists and people who have been involved with INEC at organizational level at different stages, we have had to engage INEC so many times in the past. And even on your programs, the questions have been asked by Nigeria Info and so many other people, do you think that INEC is ready? And shamefully, I would say, we have, after all the series of interactions we have had with INEC officials at the very highest level, and all the assurances that they have given us based on the preparations they told us that they had made and all that, some of us have said, all of us have said, yes, that we think INEC is ready. But we have also put a caveat there before now that the sweetness of the pudding is in the testing. So now we have seen the pudding has been tested and we have seen how sour it is. INEC embarrassed a lot of us. INEC brought disrepute to Nigeria, as a country before the international community, and that is sad because INEC has been given much more than any other INEC in the history of this country. Over 305 billion naira given to INEC, just by the government alone. international organizations have funded one program or the other of the INEC. So for us, to have this, and of course, that what Nigeria is spending for election is about 15 times more than that of South Africa. Even if you look at the population of South Africa and increase it and double it to what Nigeria's population is, we will still be spending so much more than South Africa, and see how our election has developed, regardless of what people say, along partisan lines. The issue is that the verdict has been decided. The domestic and international observers say that this election did not meet the minimum requirements for a credible election. So people will call in and they will tell you, yes, this election was the best, just like the president said. But the president says that his government is the best in this country from 1999 to date, that they are satisfied with that they've left, that they are leaving this country better than it was in 2015. Nigerians know the truth. That is the reason. So with this election, I see this election as worse than the election that was conducted by Morisiwu, regardless of people's partisan views, because people are on different sides of the divide. And for the purpose of satiating their own personal predilection or predisposition, they will give perhaps a different verdict other than what they know to be true. But the reality is that the verdict is already there. It has been decided. From what we have seen, INEC did not, even the most essential aspect of INEC's election, which is the uploading of results. INEC was not able to do that. And what made it again, people believe that it was done out of mischief. It was essentially that the same machine worked for all the process of accreditation and voting, and then uploading of the National Assembly elections. All of them went smoothly. When it came to the biggest one, the presidential, that did not work. And you are going to see that this Saturday, it is going to work. The beavers will be able to upload. Why is it going to be uploaded? Because the people who did what they did to prevent that upload do not have any other major need. So they will now allow this to work. But it is sad. It is sad, like I said, because Nigerians have cooperated with this INEC more than at any other time in the history of elections from 1999 till date. So it's embarrassing for a lot of us. It is really embarrassing because, it's just that some of us had provided a caveat when talking with you people. Otherwise, people could say, you are part of this process, you are part of this election that went awry.
Achikechude, look, I'm going to have to find a way to bring you back here, maybe on Friday before the election, because we still have a lot to talk about. Because governorship election, people seem to think that it's not as important as presidential election, but it's pretty much very, very important. It's very, very important. So I would try and find a way to have you on the show on Friday before the election, so we can have a final take on what to expect on Saturday and how things will probably play out. Thank you so much for joining me on the show this morning, Achikechude.
All right, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Lagos, Achikechude joining us there in reaction to the governor's earlier interview that we had. We're going to leave it here for this morning, okay? Thank you all for being a part of it. Tomorrow is Health Thursday, so we'll be discussing glaucoma tomorrow with the Ophthalmological Society of Nigeria. If you have questions and what have you, it's at that time to have that conversation again concerning your eyes, that is, concerning your sight. Join us at 8 o'clock for that one. All right. I'll see you then. Coming up next is some Daily Digest with Jimmy Sue. Right. And afterwards, you have What's Up Lagos with Mary and Stretch and, of course, Feta. I'm Sheriff Quadry across all social media platforms. Sheriff Quadry on Twitter, Sheriff Quadry on Facebook, Sheriff Quadry on Instagram. I'll see you tomorrow at 5. Bye for now.
And I want to assume that you would run because I want to give the listeners context for the conversation.
In 2019, you were running mate to Atiku Abubakar. What did you learn then that you will not repeat this time?
Yes, when is the president coming out to address us?
There's a few things. One, I have a burden and a passion for young people.
The fact that you have elected a man does not mean then you begin to order him around. The president will do whatever is good for the country at any given time.
Mr. Adeshino, isn't the president responsible to the people?
What should the next president do to root out stakeholders who are complicit?
You fire those. Those that need to be fired are fired.
It's looking like a brand new Chelsea, attacking with so much fluidity. And what can you say about that, Martin? I know you follow Chelsea quite closely.
I live close to the Chelsea training ground. That's what you mean by that. I'm not a Chelsea.
And I want to assume that you would run because I want to give the listeners context for the conversation.
In 2019, you were running mate to Atiku Abubakar. What did you learn then that you will not repeat this time?
Yes, when is the president coming out to address us?
There's a few things. One, I have a burden and a passion for young people.
The fact that you have elected a man does not mean then you begin to order him around. The president will do whatever is good for the country at any given time.
Mr. Adeshino, isn't the president responsible to the people?
What should the next president do to root out stakeholders who are complicit?
You fire those. Those that need to be fired are fired.
It's looking like a brand new Chelsea, attacking with so much fluidity. And what can you say about that, Martin? I know you follow Chelsea quite closely.
I live close to the Chelsea training ground. That's what you mean by that. I'm not a Chelsea.
And I want to assume that you would run because I want to give the listeners context for the conversation.
In 2019, you were running mate to Atiku Abubakar. What did you learn then that you will not repeat this